Cool. So the agenda for today, we're going to have 4 different segments. First, I'm just going to cover some high level on how you can get involved with WEF if this is your first WEF call, or if you've been involved in the STC. How do you get plugged in? How do you get started? I got plenty of tips and personal experiences that we can discuss, and potentially some stuff you can get involved in WEF Tech in 2021. And then we'll have Ashley from Arcadis talk about job hunting during a pandemic, right? Things have changed a lot, obviously over the last year, and I can assume that job hunting has only gotten harder. So we'll have her cover some tips and tricks on that. And then we're gonna have Jamie cover interviewing tips and tricks on a more technical and engineering level on what to do when you're preparing for your interview, during your interview, and how to get the job, hopefully. And then we'll have our networking sessions. So we have some YPs on the call right now that are listening to the first half, and then in the second half, hopefully we'll get started at 7. Each YP will have their own breakout room. So please feel free to jump into a breakout room as you see necessary. If you see a name that you've seen before, please jump into that room. Don't hesitate. We don't bite, we promise. We're here to, answer your questions that you may or may not feel comfortable asking anyone. And, maybe you've lost some of those connections this year over the last year, probably doing virtual school, not having that office hour time with your professors face to face. So definitely feel free to ask us any questions that you need. We're definitely an open book. So yeah. So the WEF committee structure, it can be a little overwhelming. There's over hundreds of committees that I feel are amazing. They can range from technical to programming. But specifically within the one that you're participating today, it's the SYPC. And the SYPC then branches out to these subcommittees. So the SYPC stands for the Student Young Professional Committee. That then breaks out to the subcommittees, which are the student activities that deals with the student chapters at the local level. So if you've been involved with WEF, hopefully you've had to submit your report to WEF about your student chapter, and that committee manages that, and Kahau is the chair for that, and he's on this call as well. And then there's my subcommittee and EJ's, and I think guys on the call, the student design competition, and we plan and manage the student design competition at WEF Tech. Then there's the Waterpalooza subcommittee. That subcommittee deals with setting up an event the Saturday or the Friday before WEF Tech's, pardon, at a local school where the host city for WEF Tech is, where we teach children about the importance of water. So it's a fun-packed day with a bunch of vendors. You get to play with the kiddos. So who doesn't like that? The next subcommittee, which I think is one of the most impactful ones that we have. So for every year, we have a service project in the host city, and we try to give back to that community. Last year, we did well, not last year because of the COVID, but the year before, we had a rain garden installed in Chicago. And, we keep up with the maintenance, we keep up the community to make sure that it's making an impact on the local level. So we always give back to our host city if you haven't noticed that. Next, we have workshops that manage all the workshops at WEF Tech. Guy is super involved in that. So if you see his name and you're interested in that, feel free to pop into his breakout room. He'll definitely feel free to ask him any questions about that further. And then we have the YP Summit Committee, which is super, super, super helpful. They talk about leadership development, and they tell you pretty much how to develop yourself professionally over those really awkward first 3 years of your career, kind of teaching you the things that are unspoken that you kind of have to learn on the job. I've been at the YP Summit in Nashville, I believe 3 years ago now. It's super helpful. You make many connections, and then if you're lucky enough, you get to stay for the utility conference right after. A part of the YP Summit, we alternate with AWIA, excuse me, and WEF, and we host the EYPL workshop every other year. And that's the Emerging Young Professional Leadership Workshop. Again, where we teach young professionals the one-on-ones and the best things to become leaders. And obviously we are the future. So we just want to make sure that we're able to pass the knowledge down. So I believe there's a workshop coming up next week, and there was one this week, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, Brad. I know there's one coming up next week. So if you guys are free.
So there's one that's coming up on March 17th. It's from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's going to be on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Can you send a link for that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you, Nadine.
No problem.
Cool. So if you're interested in any of these things that I just said, they all sound super cool to you. Honestly, the best way to get plugged in is to just volunteer. If someone says, yes, we take it and we run with it. So if you say you want to help, then feel free to reach out to me, to Brad, to any of one of us that you heard me ping their names. Go into the breakout room and say, hey, I want to get plugged in. All these committees have monthly meetings in addition to our overall SYPC meeting. I'm telling you, just as long as you say, I want to help, we will take it. We definitely need it. There's definitely some committees that are sometimes overwhelmed, so we're always looking for help. Cool. So if you haven't been to WEFTech, as a student or as a young professional or as a professional, it is a great experience. Personally, I've been to 3 WEFTechs, and I can't count on how many fingers, how many connections I've made. So I've met a lot of people. I've made friends and colleagues, and I've gotten job offers from WEFTech, which I think is what speaks to most of you students now. So if you have the opportunity to go to WEFTech, this year's WEFTech will be in Chicago, and that will be October 16th to the 20th. So on that Friday before, like I mentioned, there will be the Waterpalooza event. Fingers crossed, obviously. COVID restrictions, we're not too sure, but we're all seems ahead for an in-person event. Oh, again, if I'm misspeaking, please feel free to correct me, any one of the committee heads.
Will be some sort of Waterpalooza. Even if it is online, we just hopefully found a school to work with today. So there will be a Waterpalooza, whether or not it is in person.
Awesome, thank you, Natalie. And then we have the service project that happens the Saturday before WEFTech kicks off. And I think Joe's on the call. Joe, can you correct me if I'm wrong? We're all steams ahead on an in-person project this year.
That is correct, Stephanie. Josh Donegan's on the call. He's a good point of contact for any future questions. He's the chair of this project. I'll be the vice chair for the next time we're in Chicago. And the plan is to, yes, move on with the service project for this year.
Great, thanks, Joe. Sorry, Josh, didn't see you there.
Oh, you're good. Yep, no, thank you. Looking forward to chatting with some folks who are interested in being involved in this. Please jump in the chat room with me.
Great, thanks, Josh. And then the Sunday before WEFTech kicks off, we will hopefully, fingers crossed, have our in-person student design competition. This year will be a little different. We're going to have an in-person and a virtual competition. We would want to include those schools that potentially may not be able to physically travel to WEFTech this year and have a virtual competition as well. So that will be happening either way as well. And then all fingers crossed we're in person. There's usually a career fair that happens on Monday of WEFTech, and then there are plenty SYPC's happy hours, which are the greatest networking events. So we kind of wanted to mimic those events in this networking event that we're having today. So hopefully you'll learn something that you would have learned in person from WEFTech 2020. So now we're going to hear from our first speaker, Ashley Landis, who's a talent acquisition specialist for Arcadis. She's been working with Arcadis for the last 4 years, and she focuses on recruiting engineers, field techs, geologists, scientists, contractors, and inspectors, and non-technical personnel talent across for Arcadis. Which is one of the leading consulting and engineering firms in the world. She has had experience in recruiting both recent grads and established professionals. She enjoys connecting people with great opportunities and partnering with business leaders to build a high-performing team. I'm going to hand it over to
Hi, everyone.
Hi, thanks for the lovely introduction, Stephanie. So Stephanie asked me to come and talk to you all about finding a job during a pandemic. If you can move on to the first slide, Stephanie, I'll just dive right in. So obviously it's a hot topic right now. We're all experiencing this together and trying to feel our way through it. So how do you stand out? Importantly, that's kind of the biggest question. There's a lot more candidates. There's not a lot of hiring. A lot of companies are very hesitant to hire right now because of predicting workload and things like that. So I've been talking to a lot of students and candidates about this. So I have a lot of tips to share. And oops, I wanted to move this over so I was looking at you all. So I want to start with this quote because I really think it fits basically all job searches, not just when you're in a pandemic. And to achieve something, you must first have a definite, clear, practical ideal, a goal, an objective. Second, you need to have the necessary means to achieve that goal. So that might be knowledge, money, materials, or methods. And third, you need to adjust your means to ensure you're aligned with your goal. So if you know what your end goal is, which might be becoming a water engineer at Arcadis, for example, you can identify all the tools that you need to get to that goal. The major that you need to have, the required or preferred certifications or skills, listed on a job description, all of those good things. You can find a number of paths to that end goal if you have the end goal. If you don't have the end goal defined, then you're kind of weaving and wandering around and you don't really, you can't find a clear path to nowhere really. You can go to the next one, Steph. So how do you stand out with all of these candidates on the market and not ability to network and get in front of people face to face? These are my biggest 5 tips right here. And basically, if you have all of these 5, you're in pretty darn good shape. The first one, obviously, your resume. Most of the time, even outside of COVID times, this is your first and only chance to get in front of a hiring team or a recruiter. So you need to make sure it's flawless. Be sure that you're treating it like an evolving document. You need to add things as you learn and experience new things. So make sure you're customizing your resume to fit the specific job that you're looking for, making sure that you mirror things that are in the job description on your resume. Then also, before you submit it, make sure you have your mentor, your roommate, your professor, maybe your mom, take a look at it because they could find misspellings or little errors in punctuation or alignments, formatting issues that you might not see because you've just looked at it so many times. So you can't really say, I'm a detail-oriented person and then have those little errors in your resume because hiring managers will pick that out. The LinkedIn resume or the LinkedIn profile, a lot of students don't think that it's important to be on LinkedIn. They think it's a little bit, for older professionals, more experienced people. But if you have a resume, you can also have a LinkedIn presence. And just copying and pasting some of your experience from your resume onto your LinkedIn will do the job, just, easy peasy. And then you add a picture. Adding a picture, it makes you 13 times more likely to be found on LinkedIn. So it will substantially increase your search hits, by recruiters and people looking for people with your skills. Making sure that you're listing your professional affiliations and your technical skills on your LinkedIn also helps recruiters when they're searching for those specific things. They might want someone with 0 to 3 years of experience and AutoCAD experience on their LinkedIn. If you have those things listed, you will come up in their search. So that is you doing basically nothing and allowing yourself to be found by someone searching for you. Making sure that you have your leadership responsibilities on there as well is good. First of all, you have to take on those leadership responsibilities. You have to take on, an extra role. Maybe it's in a campus organization or acting as your project manager during your senior design project. Those type of responsibilities just show that you're willing to step up. So, all of those volunteer opportunities with WEF that Stephanie was talking about, those are great things to be able to, put on your resume, put on your LinkedIn, and show that you're willing to take on, a little bit of extra and step up where needed. It also shows me as like a recruiter or a hiring manager, if you're taking on leadership roles, it indicates that you have good communication and organizational skills, because those things are really necessary to lead a team to accomplish a common goal. When you're looking at the involvement piece, again, these last three kind of overlap a lot, but really it's because it's so important. Involvement in professional organizations, honor societies, WEF, they show that you're willing to take on extracurriculars that align with your professional goals. It also shows that you can manage being involved in a lot of things and maintain your responsibilities at school. So as a recruiter, I look at these things because my hiring teams want to know that a candidate can manage their time effectively. When you're involved in many things and you're keeping track of multiple projects, deadlines, etc., like those things are very important to what we do in consulting. So it's definitely skills that we look for. And then initiative. Showing initiative can be a lot of different things. You can show initiative by reaching out to professionals in the industry, finding a mentor, making connections at networking events, or even on LinkedIn. Right now with COVID, the virtual connections are really necessary. But you can also show initiative by taking on those extra roles, involvement, volunteer work. Maybe you started a business in college. Maybe you led some initiatives or volunteer opportunities on campus. There's like so many different things that you can do, and maybe you've already done, but you don't have them on your resume or you don't have them on your LinkedIn. So make sure that you're really leveraging all of the things that you've done throughout school, even if it's not necessarily, in your chosen field. It can still show different skills. Now, the next slide is probably a little bit of an overlap with the next speaker, but Stephanie asked me to talk about phone, tips and tricks about phone screens. And really my biggest tip on that is that a phone screen's an interview. Due to COVID, many employers, including Arcadis, have been unable to interview in person. So no matter if it's a phone screen or a video conference, you need to treat them all just as you would as an in-person interview. An interview is an interview. That's something that will set you apart. If you treat it more seriously than another candidate, it'll be noticed. So getting a phone screen or an interview means that you made it through the first hurdle, the resume review. So all those things that we talked about, you had them all on lockdown and you got past that. So, they found that you meet at least the minimum qualifications of their position. And then they have to put a person with that paper. So first interview is when your personality, communication skills, professionalism, and things peripheral to your experience all come into play. So really, the 4 things on this slide are the things that I think are the most important. And it might seem silly to dress to impress if you're having a phone screen, but honestly, it's really all in the mindset. So think about what we've all been experiencing during COVID. Do you even feel motivated when you get up and you stay in your pajamas all day? Or do you feel more motivated and on top of your game, like ready to tackle the day when you get up, shower, put on some makeup, do your hair, get dressed? Just because we can stay in pajamas all day, not necessarily the best for our mindset. So if you have an interview, even if it's a phone screen, get up and prepare just as you would a face-to-face interview, because your mindset will completely differ. It'll be completely changed going in, and your confidence will even get a little boost. Preparing is very important. This one's the most involved. Don't just Google a company the morning of. Print out the job description, print out your resume, write down your answers to some behavioral-based questions. You can Google what those are and some examples of behavioral-based questions. And then the biggest piece of advice I can give you that will definitely set you apart in your interviews is to know what you want to tell the interviewer before they even ask you a question. So some people are just really bad interviewers, but if you know the job description inside and out, and you have a bunch of projects, experiences, and all of your skills, your whole toolbox written down and fresh in your mind, and how those things align with the job, you'll be ready for whatever the team asks you. And you'll also be able to find a way to tell them what you want to tell them, even if they don't ask the right questions. The third one, be positive. It might seem a little bit, woo-woo, but would you rather be around someone who's positive or negative? So it seems logical that people hire people that are positive because they are more likely to feel that they want to be around those people and they'll be a positive influence on their team. When you're optimistic, flexible, and can make the best out of a situation, not only will you be more resilient in your job search, but you'll also be more appealing to hiring teams. And my last one is the follow-up. So be sure to follow up with your recruiter after your interview, send them a thank you note to send on to the team, let them know what impressed you most about the team or their projects or their company. And if you can write an individual note to each interviewer, if there are multiple to each one, this will go a long way because you'd be really surprised how many people do not send any thank you note after an interview. Like probably the majority of people don't send a thank you note, let alone a specific thank you note to a specific interviewer that mentions something specific about that interviewer's experience or something they shared during the interview. When that is done, it always wows my hiring manager. They always end up sending it to me saying like, wow, this is really thought out. And I can't believe she remembered that I talked about this project or brought up, where I went to school or whatever in the thank you note. So if you're intentional about those things, you will definitely set yourself apart. And that right there, setting yourself apart, hitting all of these items is what is going to put you in front of another candidate that doesn't take all of these steps. So that's all for me. And if any of my stuff did overlap with the next speaker, it will just go to show you that it's just that important.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley, for your time. And everyone, if you have any specific questions for Ashley, she will be hanging around and she will have her own breakout room. So feel free to jump in and ask her anything you would like. She is a great person. So now we're going to hear from Jamie Salfulko. Jamie is an engineering manager at South Platte Renew, the third largest wastewater treatment facility in Colorado. There she manages a team of engineers on process optimization and capital projects. She is involved with her local WEF member association, Rocky Mountain WIA, and is currently the vice president. So now I'm going to hand it over to Jamie.
Thanks, Stephanie. And yeah, Ashley, great segue into my presentation. So thank you for that setup. Well, thanks so much for having me, guys. I've been a hiring manager now for about 5 years, and I have to tell you, hiring is one of the most difficult parts of my job. It is really hard to, again, get a good fit and a good feel for people. So I understand kind of both sides and, the complexities that go with it. So you've already tailored your resume, you've done your cover letter, and you've got to the point where you're qualified and they want to interview you. So now what? Stephanie, if you could please go to the next slide. These are kind of my steps to success, or kind of, what I think. If you do these things, I can't guarantee you that you'll get the job, but I'll guarantee that you'll feel like you've done everything to prepare yourself to get the job. So step one, just like Ashley said, is prepare. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't go around talking about my accomplishments all the time. It is super awkward to talk about yourself and to present your information well. And so you want to start talking out loud about what you've done. So you need to practice with anyone you can. And you can't just write it down, you need to say it out loud. And I'll go into a little bit more of that in the next slide. Next is research. So you need to know what company you're looking for, what they do, what projects you're going for, little specifics that you can ask questions. So really, again, you're getting the full picture of that company. And last for preparation is really prepare questions. So when I'm looking to hire someone and I'm interviewing, what questions they ask at the end is almost my favorite part, because it really shows how engaged and how much you actually want the job. And so those last questions, not just when are you making a decision, is really important. So you've done your preparation. We're on to the day of your interview. Just like Ashley said, even if it's a virtual interview, dress to impress. You want to make sure that you brush your hair, you look good, and you'll feel better as well. Additionally, if you are doing a virtual interview, Make sure your camera looks right. Make sure that you have good lighting. I did an interview the other day with half of a guy's face. Did I listen to him? No, I have no idea, because it was so distracting. So make sure that you have a good camera, good lighting. I would also recommend showing up early, even if it's obnoxiously early, so you are ready. Make sure you either have that internet connection that you need if it's a virtual interview, or that you're in that waiting room ready to go. So when they call your name. Definitely bring materials to take notes. Sometimes, again, there's questions being asked. It's good to take notes, again, to remember what they asked you. Also, for those thank you notes that Ashley talked about, making sure you make those conscious ideas that you can bring back to a thank you. And then, again, copy of your resume, copy of your cover letter. Make sure that you know what you're presenting to that panel. And then if you can, it's easier with virtual with Teams, but if you can get that contact information, and if it's in person, ask for a card at the end of it. So again, you can have everybody's emails, so you can write them those thank you notes. And most importantly, and I think probably the hardest thing to do the day of, is just try your best to relax. You want to make sure that you are being the most true to yourself and presenting your personality. And it is stressful, but if you can take some deep breaths, do whatever it takes for you to feel comfortable, really take a moment to try to relax. And I think the preparation is going to make you feel more relaxed as well. So something that people forget a lot is step 3. So after the interview is completed, always thank the people. As a hiring manager, I don't have a ton of time. And so when I'm taking the time to interview you, it's taking time out of my day. And it is really nice when people acknowledge that and acknowledge that, it is a tough decision, and it makes you remember that candidate for sure, especially if it is unique to that interviewer. And then again, be persistent, but in a professional, non-annoying way. And it is a balance. I would say probably follow up 1 week after if you haven't heard, just with a polite email. And again, if you haven't still heard, email again in 3 weeks. And again, just that you're interested, don't nag or anything, but make sure you are interested and you want this job. So next, I'm just going to keep going with pushing in the preparation. So just like I was talking before, talking about yourself can be really tough. So the first thing that I always do when I'm interviewing, or if I'm coaching someone to interview, is to know your elevator speech and practice it out loud. And actually, when I was in the car this morning, I was practicing my elevator speech to remember if I could do it. And it's tough. It's tough to talk about yourself, and it should be, concise, short, and impactful. So I went to the University of Colorado Boulder. I started my job off in private consulting. I leveraged that experience to go to the public sector, worked on my project management and leadership skills, where now I get to be the manager of an engineering group. And so it can be short and impactful. You don't have to talk for a long period of time, but really hit those important points. And make sure you understand why you are unique, or why they would want you for that position. So next, really coming prepared with your projects and experience. So this could be from classes to class projects to even, other side jobs that you've had in college. It's nice to see that people are human. And so you want to make sure you understand the good things that have happened in those projects, but also I think more importantly, some of the bad things that you've learned, and what have you done to grow from those, mistakes or errors and things like that. Because if you go into this interview thinking that you're perfect, they're going to see right through that, and they don't want to see that. We want to see that you're human and that you made mistakes, but you have learned from those mistakes, and that's the most important thing. So make sure you have those just key points that experiences in college or work that you can take and express to the interviewer. So finally, I went and took a poll from my network, from all the hiring managers that I could find, and these were their top favorite questions for interviewees. So hopefully we can distribute the slides and stuff, so I won't read all of these. But again, some people like some weird ones, some people like super technical ones, but I would try to practice as many questions as you can with people that are going to be, honest and give you a direct feedback of what they think about those, your answers. And I think one of the biggest missed questions, which is probably one of the most simple, is why do you want to work for the company? What can you do for me? Why would I want to hire you? So you need to make sure, I like the projects you're doing. I think your company is is in a good direction. What do you like about my organization that you would want to work here? So really take a good amount of thought, because you're probably going to be applying to a lot of different places. So you're going to be like, uh-oh, which interview is this today? So make sure that you've really prepared, like what makes it special about the place that you are interviewing. All right, so again, more preparation. Research the company. So look at their website. If you have the option, talk to other people that work at that company, see what they're looking for. If there's any tips and tricks that you can find, connect with people on LinkedIn if possible. And something that I really look for, which I think people overlook, is what's the company's vision, mission, and values? What are they looking for? What's their ultimate goal? And how do you as an individual align with those values and goals? That's something that's super impactful for us, because again, we want people to be there for the long run and be on the same page as us moving forward. And then, as I mentioned before, come prepared with questions. So I think this is some of the most telling things about how interested an individual is in the position. And these are some of the best ones that I like when that I've had interviewees ask me as part of the hiring process. So what is your favorite part of the job? It's why do I come to work every day? You want to make sure that these questions are specific also to the company. So if they are working on a big project, or if you've seen something in the news or they've won an award, ask about it. Make sure you find an interest in what that company has been doing. I'll go to the next one. All right. So after the interview, so let's say you don't get the job, which is, it will happen. It will happen. Do not be afraid to ask for feedback. When you get that phone call of, hey, I'm sorry, we've gone with a different candidate, don't be afraid to ask, can I get some feedback? What could make my interviewing or my resume more desirable for a type of position like this? Most hiring managers, I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them will want to help you along this process. And ultimately, stay positive. It's going to be one of the hardest things you can go through, interviewing and getting rejected and not hearing back. Just keep persistent and stay positive. I graduated college when the recession was happening in 2011, and it was really tough, and it starts to get to you, but you just have to stay optimistic and keep going. You just can't get down on yourself. So let's say you do get the job. You're super excited. You get the offer. When you get that phone call, be super appreciative and express how excited you are. You want to make sure that they feel like you were the right choice. And another thing I think that is important to know for individuals that are going into the industry, that you can negotiate. Now, it is a tactful thing to do, and you could probably do a whole YP seminar on negotiation. So an idea for you guys maybe down the road, but you can negotiate your salary and things like that within reason. So you want to be respectful and professional. So ask for advice from students, teachers, and don't be afraid to ask for more. Next, let's say you get multiple offers and that you, and you have to decline the job because you actually are deciding to go with something else. And just make sure that you would treat them like you would want to be treated. So don't ghost them, don't not reply, make sure that you're appreciative of the offer, but you decided to go somewhere else. So again, treat them like you would want to be treated if you were getting declined as well. So again, if you guys have need resume or interview help or anything like that, please reach out. I'm on LinkedIn and my email is there. So if you guys have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer or help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. Are you willing to stick around to the breakout sessions or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So if you are interested in asking Jamie some more questions, feel free to jump into her breakout room. And I think that was the last of it. So Brad, we can start networking.